One we're looking at this time is a topic very essential, very important for any human being to succeed and excel in life, in relationship, business, finance, at work, career, generally in life. And this has made certain very senior executives, and it has ruined some. You need this to move from one cadre of your career to a higher level. You need this to meander and be able to have peace and ease in your personal relationship with people and even in the family. Even politicians, those who rule one country and the other, they need this in their interpersonal relationship, in their dialogue, in their diplomatic discussions, every now and then. The subject is emotional intelligence. When you talk about emotional intelligence, it cannot be overly emphasized. So I often like to define and explain it this way. Emotional intelligence is the wisdom, or you can say the knowledge or the ability. I don't use the word the intelligence, but it also means that it is the intelligence, the wisdom of knowing yourself, open brackets, your weakness, your strengths, your abilities, your inabilities, your tendencies, your triggers, your propensities, and stuff like that. Close brackets. And knowing how to manage and control them. Continue with that definition. It is also the wisdom or the intelligence of knowing other people's, open brackets, you list the same thing you listed earlier. Strength, weakness, abilities, inabilities, triggers, and all the rest. Close bracket. And then knowing how to manage them. Can you tell me the difference between because if you look at the definition I just gave you, it's two-sided. So the one for you as an individual and then the one for other people. So can you tell me, there's a particular word that differentiates the first part of the definition and the second? Yes, the word is control. You can only control yourself. You cannot control other people, even children. There's a limit to how far you can control them. Junior, sit here. Before you turn in a conversation, Junior has gone somewhere else, is moving something else, and then you're screaming, Junior, come back here. There's a limit to how which you can control people, but you can manage them, you can cope with them, you can live with them, you can endure them. So essentially, my own definition of emotional intelligence is the wisdom of knowing yourself, which includes your strengths, your weaknesses, your tendencies, your propensities, your triggers. There are certain things you are capable of doing that you have never done. There are certain thoughts you have had in your mind that you intend to do, mostly bad things, that later on you decide to change your mind. Let me just let it slip it up. Which, if you had done some of these things, they would have either ended you in jail, they have ended you in serious problems with people or with the law enforcement. But you decided to just, or with your company, or with your in-laws or relatives. What I'm saying essentially is there are certain things that you are capable of doing that you have never done. Some of them you've thought about doing them, but you later let those things go and you never discuss them with anybody. They are your tendencies. You've never done any of these things before. Then your triggers. You know that in a conversation, for instance, once you're having an argument and it gets to a verge where you're like, all right, I'm sorry, let's let this matter go. Please, I'm done with this matter. And the other fellow is still talking and explaining and enforcing to a point. That thing turns your head. It turns your head and you want to misbehave. When it gets to that verge, when it gets to that point, that's a trigger for you. Like the repetition of this person, this explanation is a trigger for me to do something stupid. Emotionally intelligent person knows when it gets to that verge of that trigger to do something stupid. I don't get people when they are angry, they begin to, instead of beating the fellow or trying to, they begin to break things around. Some, when they're angry, they begin to say some very bad words. They begin to call the person they're angry at very terrible, unprintable names. And then there are some, when they're angry, they begin to beat the person. Imagine a man who courted or dated a lady for only God knows how long, some 4 months, 5 months, some years, 2 years, 3 years, and has never for once raised his hand on her. In fact, sometimes you see the woman is in a different city, he travels like every month going to visit her, risking his life, spending money, buys her gifts. Do you think the man doesn't really love that woman? She actually does. But then this relationship gets to a point where the man can raise his hand and beat her. Aren't there even cases where either of them, the man or the woman, stabs the other fellow to death, throws the person into a pool, pours petrol, and then smashes fire on the person and burns the person alive? But for them to have gotten to that point of their relationship, there must have been love at some point. So whatever it was that must have resulted into that, there must have been some signs and some triggers. So emotional intelligence teaches you to know what your triggers are and know how to avoid those things. You're in the office and your boss does something that you don't like, and then this thing has been repetitive, and then you get to a point where you can't take it again, and you go all physical with your boss, or you get confrontational with your boss, or you send a nasty mail insulting your boss, telling him to take his job. Meanwhile, you are paying a loan, you're paying mortgage. You didn't think about that. You have bills to pay in the house. You didn't think about that. If I lose this job, I don't know any other job I'm going to get. You're writing an exam, and your boss has been so understanding and helping you to ensure that you can focus on that exam till you're through. Even though you're still being paid salary, you've forgotten all of those things. At that moment, you are mad. And then you sent that email. You did something that just 1 minute, you've done that thing, now you're regretting. So emotional intelligence is the wisdom, the sense, the intelligence of knowing your weaknesses, your strengths, your triggers, your abilities, your inabilities. Some people are they're not so good at managing money, right? So when it comes to money, they have very high tendency of it goes here, it goes there, and all that. And then you are in a setting where your integrity will be at stake if you're given money and you're not managing it well. And they are not emotionally intelligent enough to know, I don't have this, having this money in my custody for me is a weakness and can result into, it's going to spoil me in this group. And there are lots of prospects for me among these people. You take the money, and then later on issues begin to come up. So that's one side of definition of emotional intelligence. And then the other side is the intelligence of knowing other people's, their weaknesses, their strengths, their abilities, their inabilities, their triggers, and all that. And then knowing how to manage them. You have a boss, you just resumed a new employment, or you've been working there for some time. You don't know what your boss likes and what he doesn't like. He doesn't like a lengthy email. Going out now for marketing, from there I'm going to this place, and from there I'll be closing. He likes all of those things. You're not intelligent enough to know that and follow him through. You begin to complain. Maybe you have a colleague who is in another department, and then the boss just comes, he gives him the things to do, and then does not even bother how he spends his day. But your own boss wants to know every single minute, and then you and this colleague are discussing, and then you now begin to compare your colleague's boss with your own boss. And then when your boss is behaving the way he usually does, you're angry, you're upset, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, and then you're venting your anger here and there. I don't know why you behave like this. Isn't this another boss in this same company? You are not emotionally intelligent. You keep having issue with that man. You keep having issue with that woman. You are not emotionally intelligent. You should know your boss. Give him what he wants. Give her what she wants. So there are some bosses who are very protective of their department. They don't want you making friends with other people. They don't want you, getting into association. You are there gisting and talking. Stay in the office and just stay. After work, whoever you want to play with is fine. But please stay in the office and then just do our own work. But then you find other department, you're always gisting, maybe during break or during working hours when there's nothing much to do. You see them in clusters, they're gisting, or they have a time when they team bond and your boss doesn't like that. You have to be intelligent enough, emotionally intelligent enough to know what your boss wants and doesn't want. In relationship, you have a spouse or a partner. She wants this, she behaves like this, these are her triggers. This is how she thinks. And then when she thinks this way, when you say this, she thinks this way, and she says things this way, and those things are triggers for you. You want to avoid bringing such conversations. You want to avoid bringing up such things. It doesn't mean you're deceptive. It doesn't mean you're hypocritical. It just simply means you are emotionally intelligent. Look, we are programmed beings. We are programmed beings, such that the way we think, the way we act, the way we react to things and situations, it is the same way. You see, some people are complex. You haven't taken time enough to study that person. That person behaves in cycle. Every human being, except that person takes a conscious effort to alter it. And then once that thing is altered, give some time, a new pattern is formed. We behave in a certain pattern. All humans, we all behave in a certain pattern. And then when you can understudy and try to know how your partner, how your spouse, your parent, your relative, or your roommate or flatmate, how they behave, you can know how to manage them, not control them, not hypnotize them, not subject them, but manage them, how to live with them. Even children, parents, you have a boy and a girl, you have a girl and a girl, a boy and a boy, you have two kids. They do not behave the same way. The first child, you need to really talk at the top of your voice for him to listen to you and do what you ask him to do. Maybe you might even need to do a little spanking for him to conform and do what you expect. While this other child, this other one might even be older than the boy. This girl, you need to sit her down, make her understand, talk sense to her, make her understand why she should or shouldn't do that. And she understands and she won't do that. When you yell and shout at her, she begins to cry, she feels demoralized. You need to understand them and give them what works best for them. So essentially, that's the definition of emotional intelligence. Now, there are other types of intelligences. We have intelligence quotient, right? That is IQ. Let me explain this here. You need IQ to excel in cognitive activities. For example, to do well in school, to write an exam. So you need IQ to pass in school, but you need EI, emotional intelligence, to do well at work and in life. Aren't there folks who came out of school with the first class, but they are jumping from one job to another like harlots? They are here and then the boss tells them, this is how I want you to do this thing. And the person feels, I came out with the first class. I'm not told what to do. I tell people what to do. This is something, I came up with the first class in engineering. How come my boss who graduated some 25 years ago is telling me, no. We use the best, in fact, some of the tools we use, was AI enabled. So how come my boss is not telling me, no, I'm not going to take that. And I begin to argue with the boss, and the boss feels, this one is too proud, I can't work with him. He's fired. First class student is fired. He doesn't have emotional intelligence. And then another one is social intelligence. How we relate with people in social gatherings and environment. Now, this kind of intelligence is actually very good, or is a particular strength for those in marketing, sales, business development, and of course senior executives. Because these are guys and folks who go to a social gathering, a meeting, a conference, a training, a seminar, a master class, and then during break or at some point they walk up to somebody or maybe the speaker and they say, hi, I am this, can I meet you? And then they begin to exchange pleasantries and exchange contact, and all right, I'm going to be in touch, I'll call you, I'll talk to you. Social intelligence. Then there's also financial intelligence, those who are actually intelligent financially. Now, at this point, let me explain something to you. It's a presupposition, it's an underlying belief in a branch of science. There's less than 50 years ago, this science was born, neuro-linguistic programming, which talks about the psychology of how we behave, the psychology of how we interpret the external world in our mind, what language we use in interpreting what is happening around us. And then, one of the ideas around this states that we do not see the world the way it is, but we see the world the way we are. We do not see the world the way it is, but the way we are. So neuro-linguistic is about how we tell ourselves stories in our mind, and then those things, they shape us, they form us, our thinking pattern, our behaviors, our reactions, our interactions. You see somebody talking in a certain way, and then this other person feels he's talking to me. It's because I didn't do what he asked me to do yesterday. He asked for the money, I didn't give him, that's why he's reacting like this today. All right, you are telling yourself certain story in your mind, and they are programming your mind to now behave in a certain way. So that's just a little intro about neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Now, there are different presuppositions, which we call underlying beliefs, pillars in which NLP has been built on. Right. So one of them is the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. So what this simply means, your map is not the territory, is this. Let me explain it this way. For those who did geography in school, you're given a very big cardboard sheet called a map, a paper map. And then the map tells you from one point to another, the road to take. It tells you different details and information, all right? But then, the map, even if it tells you this is the road, it does not tell you if there are potholes. The map does not tell you the depth of the potholes, even if it tells you there are potholes. The map does not tell you the number of trees in science forestry areas. And even if it does, it doesn't tell you the height of the respective trees. That simply tells you something, that the map is limited by nature. For those who did not do geography in school, majority of us, we must have used Google Map at some point or the other. So let me use Uber as an example, or not Uber now. Let's say we're driving from a point A to point B. No, point A to point E. All right, and then we're driving the car to point E from point E, and then we turn on the map, and the map tells us the fastest route to move from point A to point E. But to get to point E, we have to move from A to B to C to D to E. All right. When you turn on that map and you start going, do you know that the map will be showing you point E as you advance from A? As you're moving and you pass A to B, A moves backward because you're now at B, but it's still heading towards E. From B, you advance and you get to C. A literally disappears from your Google map. You no longer see it on the map. It's now B that is backward. But then you have D just right in front of you because you are on point C, heading towards E, but you have D in front of you. Are you following me? Now A is gone. A no longer shows on the map. I cannot see A anymore. Now, does it mean that A no longer exists in the universe? Does it mean A no longer exists on Earth? Does it mean A no longer exists as a location? It still does. For the fact that I can no longer see point A on my map does not mean it does not exist. Now, I'm on point C heading to D. We're meant to go with two cars. The other fellows were delaying, so the three of us took on this car and then we headed out. The other guys started coming on, and then leaving A heading towards B, they call us and they tell us point B is so blocked, we're going to be having 25 minutes delay because of the traffic in point B. And then I'm beginning to tell them that's not possible. We just passed point B and it's clear, the road is free. And then he says, but I'm seeing it on my map. Hey, point B is now behind us. We can't even see it again. A and B are gone. We are now at point D. C is behind us. We're heading towards E. While they are at point A, heading towards B, they can see B. And they said we have 25 minutes delay at point B. Because we no longer see it on our map does not mean they are lying. Many a times, like I said earlier, we see the world the way we are, not the way it is. Because I no longer see point B on my map does not mean it no longer exists. For the fact that point B was free as at the time when I passed doesn't mean that there couldn't have been any possibility of having 25 minutes delay at point B. And they begin to fight and argue and argue and argue. Maybe it's a husband and a wife. The wife says there's traffic, and the husband says I just passed it. And then they begin to argue and argue, and who knows? And then the woman says, if you don't believe me, I'm not coming again. And the man says, all right, don't even come again. I don't even need you there. I'll do whatever it is I want to do, and then I'll come back myself. And then they argue and fight each other. Your map is not the territory. This singular presupposition, if understood, will bring solution to majority of the commotions and the wars and the fights from one nation to another. The disagreement and discord in relationship, in marriages and businesses, in homes, in businesses. A business partner feels this is how to do it. This other fellow says this is how to do it. They are saying the same thing but saying it differently. And because they are not seeing the same thing, as it were, they go apart. They go their separate ways. The map is not the territory. What I'm essentially saying is this: if you can open your mind to want to see what this other person is saying, say what this other person is saying. For the fact that I am not saying it, it is not in my map, it is not in my reality, may not necessarily mean that thing does not exist. It could just be I am limited. And actually, I am limited. Let's get a bit religious, and then let me use that to explain, then I'll go to the next point. You see some preachers, they come up and they talk to you about God, and then they say this is how God is, this is his likes, this is his dislikes, this is, these are the things he wants, this is how to dress, this is how not to dress, this is this and all that. And they talk to you about God as though they have breakfast with God every morning physically, or they have dinner with God every night. Hey guys, it is the part of God he chooses to show you, he shows you, and that's what you know. Don't run with it and come in front of us and tell us about God as though you have dinner with God every night and then God tells you how he spent his day. No. It is the part he chooses to tell you, to show you that you know. Don't tell us as though you know the whole of God, and then whoever else is talking about God in different light, and then you feel they are wrong. Maybe they aren't. Possibly they aren't. Let me use an example. Moses in the Bible saw God. In fact, God said this was somebody who spoke to him face to face. All right? I don't think there was any other person in the Bible story who had, sorry, this is a lecture, but I'm just trying to use Bible to push my point even further. God said, I speak to Moses. That was when his siblings, Miriam and the other man, Aaron, when they spoke against him, and God was, condemning them and said, I talked to him face to face. All right? And then at some point, when God was communicating with him, God needed to pass. And God said, nobody can see my face. If they do, they will die. So when God was passing physically, this wasn't spiritual, this was not a revelation. God literally used his hand to cover his face, covered Moses' face. Because if you saw him, you will die. God used his hand, covered his face, and passed. And when he passed, Moses turned and saw God. But which part of God did he see? God's back. Now, as close as he was to God, Moses couldn't have come to us and begin to tell us the mark, the tribal mark on God's face, the kind of beard that God had, the kind of hair in front of God's face, the kind of eyebrow, eyelashes, the kind of eyeball God had. You didn't see his face, Moses. You only saw his back. Tell us what you saw about his back. If Moses couldn't tell us everything about God, then who are you? You've never seen God's finger. You've never seen God's finger. So what I'm saying essentially is, the part of what you know, say it. The part you don't know, try try to have an open mind. Try to retrain your mind to absorb and accept other people's view. Because you know what? The map is not the territory. Now, the next point I'll be sharing with you quickly is on another presupposition of neuro-linguistic programming. We talked about people respond to perception than they do to reality. People respond to perception than they do to reality. Many a times we judge situations by our perception, by what we think, by what we feel, by what we believe, by our past experience. But it is essential we'll always want to find what the truth is at every point in time. Because you know what? You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, whatever else you think you know about that situation is likely going to be wrong. You want to always find how to know or find the truth in every situation. As I bring this session to a close, one of the fathers of emotional intelligence, Goleman, explained emotional intelligence this way, and I will use my definition at the beginning of this presentation to put it side by side with that of Goleman, and then bring this session to a close. He said, emotional intelligence helps you to be better aware. It helps for better awareness. Then it helps for better self-management. Then it helps for better social awareness. And then it then produces better relationship management. If I'll bring that side by side, better awareness means you now get conscious of yourself. And then you now get better at managing yourself. That's on your own side. Then on the other side, it then helps you to be aware socially. You know people you're working with. You're working in a new office. You don't want to just jump into making friends just so quickly. You want to be aware of the people there. The person is fronting to befriend you, to make you comfortable. That person might not be the best fit for you. He might have a basket mouth. He goes about talking to people about you. So you want to be careful. You're socially aware. It then helps you to manage your relationship better. I hope you found value in this session that I just shared with you on emotional intelligence. Essentially, this session is introduction to emotional intelligence. There's still very, very deep sessions about this. I am Dr. Tim Atimoy, the lead facilitator at Atimoy Consult, and it's my plumb pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege having this session with you. Be well.